And I would like to begin this morning, as Marty has reminded me, and I want to acknowledge all of the people who watch these talks every week. Last week was close to like 4,000 people. So just all of you just say, hey, to the camera. They can't see you. They mostly see me, but let them hear your voice. And real quick, I'll explain. You probably, if you've watched these online, you probably wonder why in the world I'm sitting like this. It's because we just concluded 45 minutes of great yoga. Yes? Yeah, this is what we do on Sundays. We call it Sangha Yoga Church. The people online don't know this. And so we get together, and my beautiful, talented wife, Marty, leads us in 45 minutes of really great yoga. And then I have my chance to share what's called the Dharma talk. Dharma simply means purpose. Our purpose is love. That's it. You can go home now. Oh, wait, there are things that prevent that. Maybe we should talk about those. So that's what we're talking about. And I would like to, again, acknowledge the people watching and say, please leave comments and share comments and questions in the space below, and I answer all of them, be it on Facebook or YouTube. I answer them personally. I don't have an assistant do it anymore. So please do that, and I'd be happy to engage in a conversation with you, and especially answer questions, because I find that after I speak, sometimes people are like, well, what about this? And I really like it, actually, when people come up and say, well, I disagree. So, because it causes me to think even more deeply. Last week, we talked about Valentine's Day. We talked about the 4 pitfalls that get people into trouble in relationships, because if we could isolate and do one thing right, then most relationships, 90% of relationships will endure. Anybody remember what that one thing is? Disagree. If we can disagree without arguing, they're not synonymous. If we can disagree without arguing, and if we can avoid the 4 things we talk about, blaming, escalating, dismissing, and splitting, then the couple tends to stay together. And it's true of all relationships. So we are continuing this idea, though, of mindfulness, because I really believe there's nothing more important than being mindful. That's a big thing that Brendan Bouchard, one of my mentors, is teaching now, is that it doesn't, 90% of what you need to do, you've got to be there mentally. You know, I love yoga. I love the fact that we do yoga, because when you're doing yoga, especially if we're doing a balancing pose, if you start to ask yourself a question or think about a problem. Have you ever done that? And you fall right out? It's amazing how our bodies respond. I finally discovered that I couldn't think about my ex-wife at restaurants because I would bite the inside of my mouth 90% of the time, accidentally. So what we want to do is we want to be present to what is present. And we say, oh yeah, well, I get that. That's totally cool, but I'm off doing this. And you also know that I'm really big into having goals and having dreams and having passions. I believe that we need to do that. We have to have a reason to get up in the morning, because ultimately that's going to be serving other people. Anything you want, you've got to serve other people to get it. So you've got to serve other people. You've got to have goals. You've got to have dreams. You've got to have things you're aspiring to. And those things will sometimes just consume your mind. And yet it's when we push those things away that we have the best ideas. Raise your hand if that makes sense. How many of you have been struggling with something, and then you say, oh, forget it, and you go take a shower, which is where all great ideas come from? That's where the complaint-free world, I was in the shower. Where's my bro? Oh, it's on this wrist. I was in the shower, and I had this idea because I wasn't thinking about it. Winston Churchill, during World War II, everyone in the world, now I wasn't alive during World War II, but from what I understand at that time, everyone was looking to Churchill to see how the war was going to go. The pressure was incredible. People were following him, asking him everything he did. And so you know what Churchill did? He forced himself to play chess every day against tough opponents, because it took his mind 100% off the war, so that when he came back, he was mentally prepared. We have this idea and it comes back to that Puritan work ethic. It also comes back to our egos, which your ego does not want you to be present at all, because it loses control. Your ego wants to be telling you to think about how that person slighted you, or this person irritated you, or why does that always happen, or I know this is going to happen. Anything to not be where you are. It's the purpose of it. And so it's this dynamic struggle to be present. Because if you think about it, one day, you're going to be gone. And as the great French poet Colette said, you know, I had a great life. It's too bad I didn't realize it at the time. There's so many times when I'm in the middle of a challenge. Marty reminded me of this the other day. We were in Jamaica, Montego Bay, all-inclusive resort. Poor us. We had opted for the butler. We had a butler while we were on vacation. Sandals offers this for just a couple $100 more. You leave your shoes at one pool, oh, they'll go get it for you. They escort you to your meals. They pour your wine. I mean, it's really like having a butler. So we are being spoiled in this most beautiful of places. And I did something I shouldn't do. I got up in the morning and I got an email, and I read my email first thing in the morning. Don't ever do that. 10 o'clock is the earliest you should ever read your email. I do that now. I literally read my emails at 10, 2, and 4, what I call Dr. Pepper times, if you're old enough to remember that. But I listened, I read this email, and it was an email from my agent. And I had done this book proposal for this publisher that I wanted to publish the book. And I thought, oh my gosh, this publisher is perfect. They publish a lot of other authors that I really admire. And they were like whipping out lighters. They were so thrilled, just like at a rock concert. They're reading my thing. They're going, oh my God, Will, this is fantastic. We love this book. We can't wait to publish this book. We can't wait to get behind this book. They told us all this. And then we go to Jamaica. And then came the email. They changed their mind. They passed. They decided they weren't going to publish the book. Here I was in one of the most beautiful places in the world, being lavishly cared for. And all I could think about was, what's going to happen now that the book's not going to be published? I mean, I wasn't crying, but inside, I'm sitting here on this beautiful beach with my beautiful wife, and that's all I can think of. Raise your hand if you can relate to that at all. It's in our culture to speed up. It's that Puritan culture. Work hard, please God. Work hard, please God. How do you work hard? You speed up. And so we have this idea that ultimately we're going to speed up enough. We're going to do enough to where we sort of catch ourselves. And then we're okay. And then everything will be great from then. Nothing is ever going to be great, y'all. There's going to be problems along the way, every step of the way. I can't tell you, I mean, I've woken up some mornings and I've been like, I'm caught up in my job. Everything is great. Marty and I are getting along. Star and I are getting along. Leah, everything is wonderful. But there's something waiting for me. Somewhere. Should I throw the rest of the day out for that? No. It should be the other way around. I should look at that as an irritation and take time to be grateful for all the things in my life. So to be mindful, we have to train this puppy. Remember, what do we have to train our mind to do? Two things.
Sit and stay.
That's it. Sit and stay. Because you've got this incredibly powerful force inside your head that can do anything. Think of every great accomplishment that has ever been done, and it was done with somebody with the same hardware you got. But they focused it on something. Our problem is we're like a ferret on a double espresso all over the place, right? All the time. And let's look at this, let's look at that, let's look at this, let's talk about this. And we have to get our minds to sit and stay. Because the thing is, even let's say, because yesterday morning, I think it was, we were all sitting around having breakfast, me and Marty and Star, and we were sitting around, and my mind was thinking about all the things I had to do. You know, all the work I had to do. You know why I had to do all this work? I had to do all this work so I could serve people. You know why I had to serve people? Because so I could also make money. So I could make money so that I could then have time with my family. Do you get the insanity of that? I'm sitting there with them and I'm not even with them. So that's what we need to begin to do. Let's go to my slides now. I said that mindfulness, is an acronym. I like to present it this way. The M stands for? Meditate. Meditate. Everyone should meditate, except for no one. That means everyone should meditate. And I do mean sitting there and breathing in that uncomfortable space, because I messed it up. Meditation is mental exercise. That's what it is. It is mental exercise. It is the same. What if Marty got us into a pose and we never stayed there? I mean, I know there's a vinyasa flow, but let's say if you got into a pose and you were never even in there long enough to adjust to the pose, to allow your hips to open, to allow your chest to expand, or to allow yourself to breathe, you would develop no mental or physical awareness of that pose, and it really wouldn't have benefit for you. We need to sit there and keep bringing that mind back, and bringing that mind back, and bringing that mind back. And today I'm going to share with you 2 ways of doing it, 2 that I love to do. One I do absolutely every day. And it won't add any extra time to your life. How's that? Raise your hand if you'd like that. A great way to meditate and become mindful. So let's talk about, I said meditate. The second thing a few weeks ago, I talked about Indians, and that was your sacred clowns. You need to begin to look at people and be grateful for the irritants in your life rather than condemn them, because they're not going anywhere. So you might as well go, okay, how can I change and absorb and live and work and be around this person? Okay? Today, I want to talk about the N in mindful, and that is what most people think of when they're mindful, and that is now. That's now. That's the present. That's being here now. And it is something you are absolutely not trained to do. My drum teacher is telling me I have to brush my teeth and shave with my left hand to make myself more ambidextrous as a drummer. Well, I've tried the toothbrushing, but I've got a lot of real estate to shave, so I don't know if I'm going to put that sort of like something sharp in this hand on this head, but I'm going to work up to it. And that's what we need to do. We need to begin to put ourselves in situations and work up to being more and more mindful so that it just becomes natural. So the first thing I want you to get is that it is unnatural in our society to be mindful. People sitting around, what are you doing? Oh, just watching the sunset. Shouldn't you be cutting the grass? Or you see what I mean? There's always a shouldn't you be. And the answer is yes. But I'm going to do it anyway. But I'm going to sit here with my family anyway. But I'm going to spend an extra 10 minutes in the tub because I deserve that time in the tub. I'm going to actually look and pet and be with my dog rather than just throwing food and water at him. Make sense? Yes? So, let's talk about 2 techniques that you can do that will teach you to be mindful, because right now you don't even know what mindful is. You don't know what it is. Unless you meditate, you really don't know what it is. So the first thing is, let's go to that slide. This is called Zazen. Zazen literally means seated meditation. In fact, the word Zen, which you think Zen Buddhists, right? And this is the meditation that most Zen Buddhists do. They practice what is called Zazen. Zen comes from the Chinese, which means, Qin is the word in Chinese, and it means quietude, to be quiet. Now, just like with regular meditation, this is simple, but this is not. Let's try it again. This is simple, but this is not easy. And it's not supposed to be. The first time that I saw Marty teach a yoga class was at our old church, and I watched all these people doing all these kind of bendy things, and I thought, that's not exercise. That is so simple. That's not going to do anything. Well, it's simple, but it's Not easy. It is not easy at all, and it's not intended to be because it's exercise for the body and the mind and the spirit. This is specifically exercise for the brain, so it's got to be a little bit difficult, right? So again, if you feel like you're doing it wrong, you're doing it right. When you do this, if you feel like you're doing it wrong, you're probably doing it right. So with Zazen, you sit somewhere. It doesn't matter where. You can do this when you're riding on a bus. You can do this when you're driving is actually a very good time to do it, believe it or not, because it makes you more present. Do you tend to get in trouble when you're more or less present when you're driving? Less present. Yeah. In fact, before we even get into this, let me share something with you as to why it's important to be mindful. Raise your hand if you'd like to be clairvoyant, if you'd like to know what's going to happen in the future. Seriously, come on. Like even 3 seconds in the future, if you could just know what's going to happen. Wouldn't that be great? If you knew that your child was going to knock something over and you could go and stop it, or if you knew that a traffic accident was going to happen, or if somebody was going to argue with you, or anything. At the University of Washington in St. Louis, they did a study recently, and what they did was they got a bunch of students together and they showed them videos, different videos. They paused the video at one of two places. Now, they either paused it during an event. An event would be a couple sitting at Starbucks having coffee. Okay, that's an event. That's a video. Then it's everyday life events. These were not cats doing somersaults and stuff like that, okay? These were everyday boring life events. People sitting on park benches, people riding subways, boring everyday things. Now, they either paused it right before an event, prior to an event, or during the event. In other words, during the event would be an example of the couple is sitting there having coffee and then someone else walks up to speak to them. Make sense? Okay? Prior to the event would be the couple is sitting there and then they get up and leave, and the event is the leaving. Make sense? Okay, now here's the point. When they paused the videos during the event, 90% of the students predicted what was going to happen next. His cell phone's going to ring. A dog's going to walk by. 90% of the students predicted it right. When they did it prior to the event, which would give almost no clue as to what was going to happen, 80% guessed accurately. And this has been repeated. This study has been scientifically tested. Do you know what's going to happen in the future 80 to 90% of the time? Most people don't. Most people don't. Why is it that they knew and you don't? It's real simple. They did something we don't do. Number one, they sat down and just looked at the video. Does that make sense? They were fully consumed in only the video. We may be sitting somewhere, but we're everywhere else. The only thing they did was focus on the video. And the second thing that they did was they were asked, what's going to happen next? It's been discovered that when your mind is relaxed and when you ask for guidance, some people would call that prayer. When your mind is relaxed and you ask for guidance, your midbrain releases dopamine, also known as the bliss drug. You not only get very, very happy, you get very, very present. And when you're present, you can enjoy the moment. So let's talk about Zazen. This is one of those things, like I say, that's like yoga that seems, oh, I can do this. The question is, do it right. You sit anywhere you want. You just breathe normally, and we'll do it in just a minute. Don't try it yet. You just breathe normally, and then you just look around and you just take in what's there. Now, the analogy I like to use is you're a droid. You're like BB-8 or R2-D2 or C-3PO, okay? Or TARS from Interstellar. And you are there, but you're a droid that only takes in data. You do not analyze data. You have no capacity for analyzing data. Because what happens is, as I'm looking around the room, I might see and go, oh, I see Star's pretty shirt. I wonder if that's hers or her mom's, because they tend to switch clothes around. Oh, I've seen that before. Oh, I know over here, and I've got to, do you see what I'm saying? That's what happens. We get triggered, and then we go into judgment or analysis of things that we see, and then we live our lives that way. So that we go in expecting bad things or carrying bad things in our minds instead of dealing with what is. If we only dealt with what is, life wouldn't be so bad. You know, as Mark Twain said, I'm an old man and I've had a lot of troubles, most of which never happened. We just need to be present to what is. So you find a place and you simply sit. And you take in data. Now, what does that mean? What it means is, if it's not present, ignore it. If it's not now going on, ignore it. For example, I might be out walking my dog Jake, then I see our neighbor's dog run by the street. My first thought is, I need to call him. I need to call him and let him know. Well, my first thought is just an observation, something I need to know. But then my mind might say, I wonder if he's home. He never answers his phone anyway. It's his fault. He shouldn't leave the dog out. Do you see how I'm just making this story up, by the way. This is an actual story. But I'm saying that is how our mind goes. So you just want to take in information. Now, we're going to do this right now, and I'm going to tell you it's going to be very difficult and very awkward because you're surrounded by a bunch of people. And here's what people do. People do the same thing that dogs do and apes do when they're together. They found that when human beings get together, they laugh a lot. But they don't laugh at jokes. They laugh when they get together as a way of saying, I'm okay. I don't mean a threat to you. We're socially connected. So people go, yeah, a lot. So in a minute, you're going to have this compunction to do this. So just be present if you laugh, okay? Just be totally present to laughing, but don't go, I wonder if she's laughing at me. And I wonder why she's not laughing or whatever. This is why dogs go, it's not just to dispel heat. Have you noticed when your dog gets excited, and it's not just excitement, it's, I'm safe, you can play with me. Apes do the same thing. So it's nice to know we're dogs and apes and people all together. So when we do this, I want you to notice that. But here's the thing. Don't think about how it was made. Don't think about what it does. Don't think about what you're going to do. Just simply identify things. Black yoga mat, gray carpet, etc. But you want to use all 5 of your senses, all right? So we're going to do this for just a minute. Ready? And by the way, here's a very important piece of information. When you start to see something, for example, I see Buffy's yoga pants and I go, I think Marty has a pair just like that. As soon as I start to think that, I need to look somewhere else. Does that make sense? Because then my mind is going to seek to answer that question. Does Marty have a pair just like that? I don't know. Let me go back and search all the pairs. Go to something else. Make sense? So you are here to take in, not analyze. Right, BB-8? All right, let's do this for just a minute. Like I said, it might feel awkward. You don't want to close your eyes. This is about being fully present to where you are. Listen to the sounds. Let me ask you a question. How do you feel now? Do you feel, and we only did that for about 30 seconds. Do you feel a little lighter? Raise your hand. I want social proof. Good. Do you feel a little more present? Yeah. That's it, y'all. It's just that easy. One of the things that I like to do, though, is when thoughts come in, and they're waiting to come in, okay, is to categorize them. Like I suggest you do when you meditate. That's a to-do thought. That's a self-deprecating thought. That's a feeling sorry for myself thought. That's whatever thought. That's a nostalgic thought. You need to put your thoughts on shelves and say to yourself, I'll go pick them up later. But right now, isn't that hummingbird on that plant just beautiful? So that's Zazen. The second thing I want to share with you, and you can do this, like I said, do it while you're drinking your coffee or tea in the morning. Do it for just a few minutes to ground yourself in the day. The second thing is called mindfulness walking meditation. Thich Nhat Hanh teaches a lot about this. And it's the exact same thing as Zazen. There's no difference except your feet move. There's absolutely no difference whatsoever. Thich Nhat Hanh suggests that you should walk as if you're kissing the ground with your feet. So most of you know I was doing a mindfulness seminar for a group of high school principals recently, and I taught them this. We were in Tucson. So I took them outside. It was a beautiful day. It was like 80 degrees, and it was just sunny. And so I told everybody exactly what it is. I said, look, as soon as you see a hummingbird, look at the beautiful hummingbird, but don't say that's a ruby-throated hummingbird, probably a female. Okay? Just be with the hummingbird. You know, it's a hummingbird. That's as far as it goes. And as you start looking elsewhere, if you start to analyze, then look at something else. Put your attention on something else. So what was so funny was I put them outside and I said, imagine you're kissing the ground with your feet. Feel the ground beneath your feet, right? So all these high school principals are out there, and I have them do it for about 10 minutes. And then I say, all right, everybody come back over here. And we talk a little bit because people are having questions. They're like, well, my mind can't stop analyzing that water bottle. Then put it on something else. So I did a little bit more training. Then I had them do it for about 10 more minutes. And then I said, okay, everybody, we're done. Go take a 15-minute break. We'll see you back in the room. I went in, and while everybody was on the break, they were still doing the mindfulness walk. It was so cool. And this huge hotel, 800 people in this conference, and they're all walking around like they're feeling the ground with their feet. When you do this, it simply becomes habitual because it feels so good. The thing is, it's so hard to do. And what we're going to talk about next week is why it's so hard to do. Because you've got something inside of you that fights you every step of the way. It wants you not present. Because if you think about it, God is present. God simply is. The universal spirit of love just simply is. It simply accepts. It's like water. It just moves around. And what do? Ah! You know, as my mom used to say, when in danger or in doubt, run in circles, scream and shout. And what we need to do is to begin to be present so that we can be more and more present for longer periods of time. And we cultivate it. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pick a time and a place when you normally walk from point A to point B, whatever it is. What I do now is there's a crack in the road in front of our house that they've patched, and that's the mindfulness line. So every day when I take my dog Jake for a walk, we pause on this side of it. I know our neighbors think we're just, me anyway, loopy, you know. But I pause and I take 3 breaths, and then I take 1 step over that mindful line, and then another step, and another step. And I do that for the first half of our walk, which takes about 12 minutes until I get to the park, and then I just let Jake run. It doesn't take any more time out of my day, but it grounds me in being present. So pick some place. You should always do this when you're walking from the car, from work to your car, because you want to leave all that stuff behind. But your mind thinks, don't worry about it. I'll get it all figured out, and then we'll leave it behind. There's a bigger to-do box waiting tomorrow. Be present now. Just be present to what is present. Don't think about what it means, what it does, what it has, where it came from. Just look at it and notice it for a while, and it'll spread. We're designed to be mindful. As Edwin Gaines says, this is the party planet. We're supposed to be here having fun, and we can achieve everything we want by serving other people. We don't have to work and worry and sweat our lives away. Make sense? Why don't we commit to that in prayer? Take somebody's hand. Let's close in prayer. Star behind you. An infinite spirit in this moment. We are simply in this moment. And our mind minds wonder, what is Will going to say next, or when is Will going to talk? And yet, once again, we go back to this moment. And when we are fully present to this moment, we are tapped into divine guidance. We know what is going to happen. We become clairvoyant. And more importantly, we become happy. We get to enjoy the moment that is the life that is going by. For this opportunity, we are so grateful. Thank you, God, and so it is. Amen.